And hi everyone, welcome to this session. We will talk about APTs in APAC aerospace industry. So first, we would like to introduce ourselves. I'm Vic Huang. I'm independent researchers and members of Taiwanese technical community UCC hackers. And it's my pleasure to share our research in SingCon. It's my first time to Singapore, and also my partner.
My name is So Liang, and I am currently an system engineer at PwC, and my passions include researching OT security and malware.
Okay, so let's start about the session. So first, I would like to give you guys introductions in case you're not familiar with satellite systems. So satellite systems, there are four important segments in the satellite systems. A satellite, of course, the spacecraft itself is the space segment. And the ground segment is including the ground stations and all supply chain infrastructures. And it's a core of the whole satellite system because it controls the whole systems. And then the third segment is user segment. User segment including all kind of devices that user access to the satellite services. And the last segment is link segment. So satellite communication are using the radio waves, radio frequency, to transmit signals between satellites and the ground stations and the user segments. So easily you can imagine the attack in the satellite system could be a lot focused on the RF attack. For example, man-in-the-middle spoofing, replay, and also kind of jamming or interfering. So besides of that, malware is also a kind of attack, mostly targeting the user segment and also the ground station segments and supply chain infrastructure. So today we are focused on the malwares in the user segment and ground station segment. So here is our motivation for this research. So in 2022, there is a VISAT incident that there is a cyber attack targeting the Erkland surveillance satellite network in 2022, the first day of the war. And the attack is attributed by the Russian threat actors Fancy Bear. They compromised the VISAT software center first and then distributed the malware AC Rain to the user's satellite modems and whip the modem's flash memory, lead to denied of service. Since then, we started to dig into aerospace and satellite industry malware attack because it's pretty fun, right? So we found that the main threat actors are highly related to North Korea and China. So in this talk, we will talk about the malware from these two countries. So first is North Korea. And let me give you some context about the North Korea. Before 2022, North Korea struggled on the satellite launching technology. Satellite launching technology is highly related to missile and rocket technology. And in 2021, North Korea government set a development of militaries and satellite and aerospace force as a goal in the next 5 years. They aim to launch their own satellites in around 2024. So in 2022, they launched a prototype satellite and published a satellite image of Seoul and Incheon, which which is in South Korea, to showcase their progress on satellite development. But unfortunately, in 2023, they attempt to launch their mitigation spy satellites on May and August, but failed. And at the same time, South Korea successfully launched their new satellites. And they decide they are not going to give up. So, but they cannot get the core technology to successfully launch the satellites. So in September, Kim and Putin has a summit in Russian spaceports, and seems they are exchanging their weapons or military powers for the launching technology. So eventually, in the November, after the summit, they launched the satellite successfully. And there is several attacks between these time periods. So these are the main three actors related to North Korea. Of course, APT-37s, and also the APT-38 and 43, which is as known as Kim Suki, or some security company may attribute it to the Lazara rules, and also Rio under RGB. We will give the detail of these three actors after. So we can see this is a timeline of the cyber attack and the related political issue or event. So attack tremendously increased since 2021 after they set it as a goal. And the target including Russia and India. And then in 2023, which they plan to launch their satellites, APT-43, Kim Suki targets media and journalists beforehand to gather the information and reactions from the different countries. And then they focus on attacking South Korea during and after the satellite launching in November. So they attacked the South Korea Space Center in December. And here we would like to share two cases of malware. The one is the 2021 early ret from Anduril and 2023 D-Track from APT-37.
In our case study on North Korea, we will briefly introduce two other real-world cases. And the first case introduced here is D-Track. Earlier, we introduced North Korean hacker organizations as named in its kernel report. And here we will briefly discuss APT-37, including malicious attacks with absurd targeting the satellite industry. APT-37 is commonly referred to online as the Lazarus group. We observe attacks on the satellite industry in 2020 and 2023 using the C-rate and the D-Track malware in each instance. And this incident happened around June 2023. We observed phishing emails pretending to be from the US military, targeting the South Korean aerospace and the satellite industry. The SQL used in this incident was a compromised website. We attribute this to APT-37 because D-Track is a backdoor used by this group. And here is a brief overview of the entire attack process. The hackers use a phishing email containing a Korean language compressed file with 3 files inside. One file is a decoy document related to the US military, while the other 2 files include a Windows shortcut file. Lastly, the third file could execute a PowerShell command. And this command downloads the next stage of malware to communicate with the SQL server. And the decoy document was in Korean and execute PowerShell command through a Windows shortcut file. And the PowerShell script download the next stage malware, which then is checked using WinIR to review the final malware dcheck. Dcheck is a REST tool that collects data and sends it to the SQL server. And in this case, its user agent was hard-coded as Mozilla 88.0. And here is a brief summary of the micro-attack techniques used in this incident. We provide attack matrix in all cases just for a reference. We will go through this. We won't go through this. And another case study we are showing here involves the use of the early-rate malware. Early-rate is malware specific to the hacker group Andrew, which Mandian has named APT45. And here we have a document called incidents related to attack on the satellite industry by the Andrew group. This hacker group frequently target critical infrastructure. In the following session, we will use early rate as a case study to show how they operate. And this incident happened in June 2021 with multiple phishing emails sent to India, including companies in the satellite industry. The primary objective was to gather information. The attacker carried out the attack by sending phishing emails, primarily targeting the India satellite industry. The sender appears spoofed as an Indian defense organization, and the cache file is encrypted with the password India at 2021, and it extracts early rate, which collects phishing data and sends it to the SQL server. The phishing email includes an obvious document with a malicious macro that was heavily obfuscated. Its main function was to download the next stage malware, early rate, and set up persistence. Early rate collects information from the victim's computer and send it to the SQL server. And the path used to transmit data to the SQL can be seen in the image above. And in the same year, other samples we hunted also transmit data to the same path. And this part shows the data sent to the SQL server when the malware runs. Most of the time, we saw the data sent using the HTTP post method. And there are two main parameters, ID and query. The ID is made from the victim's computer using the hostname and the network card address. And the query is the data collected from the victim's computer. This data is sent to the SQL using encoding or encryption. And in this case, we saw the data sent using base 64 encoding. And here we have other similar samples from the same year that we hunted. And you can see that the SQL paths highlighted here are quite similar. And here is a brief summary of the micro-attack techniques used in this incident.
So after two examples, we will have a short summary of North Korea and the attacks. So as we mentioned before 2024, in 2020, there are lack of missile and satellite launching technologies. So they mostly focus on using those malwares to gather information from the related satellite industry to achieve their goal. And after North Korea launched their first satellite, they claim that they will launch 3 more satellites in the incoming future. So we assume that different from the previous attack reasons, about the gathering information. It will more focus about the attack to political conflict, like South Korea's attack right after the satellite launched. The second one we want to talk about is the threats from the Chinese-related threat actors. So still, I would like to give you some context about their space development. So in 2010s, they have their own GNSS systems. Beidou is developed and will serve in 2020. So they have put their effort on space development since 2006. And then in 2021, at the same time of the North Korea sets the space development as a goal, they also set space development as a goal in their 14th fifth-year plan for digital economy development. And then in 2020, you can see in the right-hand side of the table, they have become the second place of satellite launch counts in the recent years. So their ambition is to become the world top 3 space domain in 2030. And since Russia put their effort on the war, so I can say that probably China is in the second place of this satellite development for now. And there are several different threat actors from China, which is, of course, there's TIC and the famous Black Tech, which is mostly focused on attacking Japan and Taiwan and Hong Kong. So here is a timeline of their attack. And different from the North Korea one, we can see they continuously attack the countries like nearby China. So in 2016, JAXA, Japan Space Center, was about to launch a new X-ray telescope, Hitomi, and then the threat actors from China attacked the JAXA at the same times, and they launched almost the same scope of a telescope satellite after 1 year. And then in 2021, there's a border conflict between China and India. And we can see that they attack India, including militaries, departments, and also the satellite departments, and then send the malware to India. And in 2022, when Nancy Pelosi visited Taiwan, Nancy Pelosi is a speaker of the US Congress, and then the Chinese threat actors launched a huge attack targeting Taiwan. And then in 2024, Taiwan claims to want to have digital civilian that they are worried about if their internet is cut during the war. So they want to make it their own, like Starlink. And then Chinese threat actors start to attack Taiwan since then. So in here, we will introduce 3 different cases, TS cookies, water bear, and the latest malware attacking Taiwan, which is named Taidrone.
Before we begin showing the cases, let me briefly introduce a hacker group called Black Cake. The first 2 cases we will discuss today are both attacks launched by Black Cake. And this hacker group has frequently targeted the East Asia region in the past. And here we list the malware absurd could be used by this group in attacks on the satellite industry. And we will show two of these cases. And let me begin by introducing a piece of malware known as KS cookie. This case from early 2020 involves phishing emails with malicious office documents sent to satellite companies in East Asia. The SQL domain used in this incident was spoofed to appear related to Microsoft, a common tactic employed by this hacker group. Based on our analysis, this incident is likely attributed to Black Hat as part of their broader strategic intelligence operations targeting high-tech industries. We have continued to observe Black Hat developing and updating its malware to focus on these sectors. In particular, they appear to prioritize industries aligned with national policy directions, such as satellite development, and conduct specific attacks to acquire relevant resources. And here is a brief overview of the attack process. We found a phishing email that includes a complex file with a Japanese name. Inside, there was an obfuscating malicious macro document. When executed, it drops the next stage malware, and this malware then decreases the final stage malware called KS cookie. From inside, its own file could communicate with the SQL server. And the macro stored the malware in decimal format, which was then converted back to ASCII and dropped into the start-on folder to achieve persistence. The drop file decreases the next stage malware stored in the resource file using ASCII4, resulting in the final malware KS cookie. KS cookie is a red tool. The table below lists its configuration data. It communicates with the SQL Server file HTTPS. And here is a brief summary of the micro-attack techniques used in this incident. And next, we will introduce an attack campaign that we have been continuously monitoring recently, which uses the malware known as Walker-Bear. Since last year, we have continuously observed Black Hat using Walker-Bear to target critical infrastructure in East Asia, including the satellite industry. Walker-Bear operates through DLL hijacking, where a legitimate application loads a modified DLL file to decrease the malicious payload. The extracted file then uses ASCII4 to decrease the payload from the resource file, resulting in Walker-Bear. And in these attack cases, we currently do not know how the hackers gain access to the internal network of the organizations. Rather, these attacks were discovered during incident investigations. When the hackers are not actively attacking, they redirect the SQL domain to an unlockable location. And the sample we are discussing was obtained during an investigation last year. But over the past year, we have repeatedly observed Walker-Bear attack in the wild. And in this case, the attacker first implants a malicious DLL on the victim's computer, replacing the original DLL file with a root version that uses the same name. They also plan an increased payload, typically with a DB file extension in the same folder. Through DLL hijacking, the malware is loaded and decreases the payload, which then launches the final stage workbear could communicate with the SQL Server. The malware's execution primarily involves a legitimate program loading a malicious DLL file through DLL hijacking. The DLL used RC4 could decrease the payload and check if the decreased data starts with the correct byte. And in this incident, a thread is automatically created to execute the decreased payload, which is workbear. The workbear samples we've recently observed resolve the SQL domain current unlockable address when not actively carrying out attacks. Lately, we've seen it frequently resolve the SQL domain Q1, Q7.0.0.1. And here is a brief summary of the micro-attack techniques used in this incident. And next, I will talk about a Chinese APT group. It is called Kaizhong. This APT group was found in a report by Chen Michael in September last year. The report talked about a Chinese APT group that was active in 2024. And this group mainly targeted Taiwan's military and aerospace industry. Chen Michael gave this group the name Kaizhong. And in the report, there are two main malware. One is called CXCLand, and the other is CLandCAN. Today, we will only talk about CLandCAN. This is because in our real case investigation, we did not find CXCLand. Our research used IOCs found on the internet. We analyzed the malware and the rules. Then we use these rules to hunt samples on fast Coco. After that, we collect and study the samples. And because many samples are missing the final payload, we will focus on CLandCAN. And here is a simple flow of how the CLandCAN malware works. And first, there is a batch file. This file runs the launcher, which is winward.exe in a picture. It also gives a payload maker to the launcher. The payload maker is used by the payload, is used by the loader called wwlib.dll. The loader will decrease the payload. Then the payload will use the payload maker to decide what to do next, like install or do other actions. And it then performs process injection into another process. This injected code is the final shortcode called CLandCAN. And after that, it connects to the SQL Server. And here is the main part inside the loader. The loader will decrease some strings and the payload. And in the sample I look at, it uses XOR to decrypt. The middle picture shows the most special part of this malware. It starts a thread using a fiber structure. Before this, most Chinese APT groups we saw use create thread or similar function to start threads. This is the first time we saw an APT group use this kind of structure. We will explain this in more detail later in the slides. And at the end, the loader uses RTL decompress buffer to decompress. Then it jumps to run the payload. This is the main job of the loader. And because it uses RTL decompress buffer at the end, when we do analysis, we can just set a breakpoint on this API, then we can quickly get the decrypt and the decompress payload. And here is the content of the payload after decryption. It first does some setup based on the improved payload makers. These include actions like making the malware stay on the system. The main part I want to show is this. The payload put built-in shellcode into the svc host.exe process and run it there. After that, the shellcode inside svc host.exe will try to call to the SQL. But in our case, the SQL server was offline, so we did not analyze the network traffic value. And this is the part I think is more interesting in this malware. In the loader, it uses a structure called a fiber. Most malware we saw before use APIs like create thread to create threads. This malware also uses normal thread method later in the payload and the shellcode. In the slide, the process injection done by the payload is also a fairly common and a basic method. So the only special thing in the whole flow is that the loader uses a fiber to run code instead of a normal thread. We check all the loader samples we could find on Cybersecurity, and they all use the same method. First, on line 12, they set start address to some junk code. That has no real meaning, just to confuse people. The real code they want to run is in the place we mark with the red circle. So when we analyze it, we can go straight to the red circle part and look for the decryption and the decompression of the payload. This helps us understand the whole loader quickly. And next, we'd like to show some data we found from our hunting activities on Cybersecurity. First, we analyzed the countries of the sample submitters. It's worth mentioning that the largest proportion of submissions actually came from Bulgaria. However, this is likely due to automatic analysis service or process using Bulgarian IP address rather than real victims in Bulgaria. According to a Trend Micro report from this year, Taiwan was the main target. On Cybersecurity, we also saw that most submitters in 2024 were from Taiwan, which matched the finding of the report. We also found a sample submit from China, which suggests that the submitter may be the attacker casking their own file. The earliest sample we found was submitted from South Korea in 2022, but we did not observe any subsequent submissions from there. In January of this year, we observed a new submitter from Singapore, the first time we saw a submission from that country. And these are our findings regarding the geographic distribution of Cybersecurity submitters. And this slide provides a visual summary of what we discussed earlier about the samples. As you can see, it includes the file from China we mentioned previously, which is named cast.txt, as well as a sample from South Korea that appear to have a fake compiler kind step. And most of the loader file names are www.dll, which stand out clear in this table. And the kind we look at was from 2022 to early this year. In the early samples, the names were mostly like www.dak or www.cfg, but the newer samples we found later seem to use random names. And here we list the SQL domains we found so far. The way they name them is similar to how some Chinese APT groups do. They often pretend to be famous companies or services. In the table on this slide, you can see SQL names that look like Microsoft, Symantec, and VMware. And this is also one that looks like a Microsoft service called WNS. And recently, when we did our thing, we found something that looked like an old APT group called Ocean Locus. This group was reported by Chinese security researchers in 2015, and it is known to come from Vietnam. In the past, they also used www.dl for attacks, which is similar to the early stage of the malware we studied. But since our group is believed to be from China, and the ocean locus is from Vietnam, they should not be related. We just found this by chance while doing audit. And here is a brief summary of the micro-attack techniques used in this incident.
So let me give you a summary about the Chinese-related attacks. So first, if you still remember, we have talked about the border conflict with Indians and several attacks, and also the malware cases we provide, and also the political conflict between China and Taiwan. So it led to several attacks. And then, so we can observe that actually they are more focused on political conflict related attack instead of stealing data. But talk about stealing data, we also found that there's the incident that we have mentioned is they try to attack JAXA 2 times right before they launch their new satellites. And then we will have big summaries of the whole session about the all information. I believe it's a lot of information. So let me give you a short comparison between the all malwares we found in the past 4 or 5 years. So in terms of space development, if you still remember, that North Korea is struggled on launching the satellite while China already has great achievements on space development. So it's also related to what kind of the tag that they will assign their related threat actor to do. For example, for North Korea, they're more focused on achieving their goal to successfully launch their new satellites. So they mainly focus on stealing the necessary information or technology or data they need. And different from that, China focused more on political conflicts, and also they pay more attention on observe and stealing data from the valuable country they think. So you can see that's also in the related threat acting, the targets in the APAC. For North Korea, it's like South Korea, India, and Russia. For China, it's like Japan, Taiwan, and India. And we also want to mention about the turning point of the attack. For example, North Korea in 2021, since they set the satellite launching as a goal. And also, you can see that in terms of China, it will be the political event in every different years. And as we mentioned about the satellite segments, we have summarized these malwares that we talk about to match the segments in the satellite service. That we can see for now, they are mainly focused on the ground segment, which is represent the ground station, ground system, and also supply chain infrastructures. And only the AC RAN, which is the VIC incident that's directly attack the user's modem in their home, in the user segments. So I would like to give you a takeaway for this session. So from now, you can see actually there's a lot of attack is targeting aerospace and satellites supply chain infrastructures. So it become the main important target for those APT groups. And also, phishing with the malicious attachments and the malware dropping are like still the most common attack method in these examples, which is not really different from the traditional malware. And last, the goal of the APT groups are still stealing technology and data instead of directly impact the satellite service itself. So for now, only the VI-SAT case that we have seen that directly impact the satellite service usage. For rest of them, they are focusing on the infrastructure and stealing data. So this is the end of our session. Thank you so much for listening. And if you have some questions, you can just send to this email. Thank you.